This is going to be a tough pill for Nebraska fans to swallow. Unless you've been living under a rock, Week 0 of college football kicked off today, and the first game of the 2021 college football season was a matchup between the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Illinois Fighting Illini. If we quickly go into the background of these two teams, there was a huge difference. Illinois is now under first-year head coach Brett Bielema, who spent a lot of time at Wisconsin and at Arkansas before he was out of head coaching for a couple of years. He's coming in, changed the culture, and building a new foundation after the mess that Lovie Smith left behind, and everyone thought this was going to be a long process to begin with, and it's Illinois football. It wasn't going to happen overnight. Their quarterback was coming off an injury, they didn't have an established running back, they didn't have a go-to option at wide receiver, and there were question marks about the defense. Overall, Illinois was expected to maybe win 3 games max, and it was just going to be a rebuild year, and honestly a free win for some of the teams in the Big Ten. Nebraska, on the other hand, has a starting quarterback going into his 4th year under center, has a head coach that's going into year 4. They had multiple highly recruited and very talented running backs and receivers, and the defense returned a lot of what they had last year. Most people had Nebraska winning 6 or 7 games, and some went as far as say they could potentially win 9. Either way, Nebraska was picked to win today's game, and many people did not think Illinois really stood much of a chance. Add in the fact that Nebraska was leading when Illinois starting quarterback Brandon Peters went down, it looked like Nebraska beating Illinois would be a surefire thing. Well, it went the complete opposite. The Illini scored 28 straight points, and despite a ferocious comeback, they won 30-22, and Nebraska is going to start out 0-1 in 2021. This changes the outlook of the Nebraska season. Scott Frost is now under a lot more pressure, and overall, the Huskers are in trouble. In today's video, I want to talk about Nebraska, my thoughts on today's game, my new projections for the rest of the year, and how they can potentially fix this mess. But first, if you are new to the channel, I make college football content every single day, and you're not going to want to miss out on it, as we are now on the road to 100,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate it if you hit that button, as nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed, and hitting that like button and just leaving a comment helps a lot. And I have so many things I'm going to cover during this 2021 college football season. So now without further ado, let's talk about today's game. Going back in time, Scott Frost was an amazing player for the Huskers and led them to some of the greatest heights the program ever achieved. Everyone in the fan base absolutely adored and loved him, and it felt like his legacy could never be tarnished. He then got into the coaching world and really started to make a name for himself while he was at Oregon. From there, he eventually became the new head coach at UCF, and he led a rebuild. The Knights were coming off an 0-12 season, but quickly in just 2 years, he led them to an undefeated 13-0 record with a win over a top 10 Auburn team, and some claim they are national champions because of it. Scott Frost was the biggest name in the coaching scene that year, and with Mike Riley's struggles at Nebraska, everyone knew where he was going to go next. He obviously chose to be the next head coach of the Nebraska program and returned to his alma mater to try to lead them back. He didn't have a quarterback at first, so he decided to grab a guy by the name of Adrian Martinez. He was originally committed to Tennessee and was a highly touted 4-star recruit in the class of 2018. He ended up committing and signing to be Scott Frost's quarterback, and he started from day one. At times, he looked like a player with an extremely high ceiling and someone who really could lead the resurgence of Nebraska football. But unfortunately, year 1 didn't go as well as expected, but it seemed like there was a lot of positive momentum going into 2019. Some expected the Huskers to win 11 games and win the Big Ten West, but that did not happen. They ended up going 5-7, got humiliated by Ohio State on a national stage, and there were now starting to be questions about Adrian Martinez's abilities and if Scott Frost was that great of a coach. Going into 2020, his seat was somewhat hot, and people were expecting a bounce-back year. And so far in the Scott Frost era, their best win was against Michigan State in 2019. That's not something to hang your hat on, and Adrian Martinez hasn't exactly been spectacular either. At one point, Noah Vedral saw time, at one point, Luke McCaffrey saw time, and some wondered if Logan Smothers could push him for the starting job this year. But just like we all expected, Martinez was the starter going into today's game against Illinois. Well, I'm someone who has defended him over the last few years, and I've given him the benefit of the doubt many times. Today was somewhat of a struggle for him. There were a lot of passes that he just did not throw very accurately. He missed an easy touchdown in the first half, and had a costly fumble that pretty much changed the direction and the dynamic of the game. One thing I do have to give him credit for, though, is he had that 75-yard touchdown in the second half, and there were many times where he would make a play out of absolutely nothing. And that's where I get to my next point. I'm very concerned about this Nebraska wide receiver room. One guy that everyone was super pumped to see this year was Xavier Betts. Betts did not even record a single reception in today's game, and he was nowhere to be seen. Why was he not on the field? I don't know. Omar Manning was the #1 junior college wide receiver in the country and decided to go to Nebraska last year, and as he struggled with injury, he did not play much last season. In today's game, he caught 2 passes for 26 yards, which just is not good enough. Austin Allen is a freak of nature at the tight end spot, and he had 2 catches for 23 yards. Samori Toure was an All-American at Montana and was projected to fill that gap that Wan'Dale Robinson left when he decided to transfer to Kentucky. He had 3 catches for 37 yards, but it just didn't seem like they were trying to get him the ball a whole lot. The one shocker in this wide receiver room was Oliver Martin. I'll be the first to admit I didn't think he'd have that big of a role this year, as I did see he would be a starter, but he never really played at either Iowa or Michigan, so I didn't really see any reason why he'd be a big factor for Nebraska this year. Well, he proved me wrong. He is not the most physically gifted guy, but he seems to work hard, and he got open as he had 6 catches for 103 yards and their touchdown that kept them in the game. I gotta give a lot of credit to him, and I'm excited to see how his season is going to turn out. The running game was interesting. Obviously, we had that 75-yard touchdown by Martinez, but outside of that, he still had 40 yards on the ground, and there were multiple times where he had some good scrambles. It shows you what I know, as I thought Marquise Stepp and Ramir Johnson were to get most of the snaps at running back, but to my surprise, a true freshman by the name of Gabe Ervin got the majority of today's carries, and I don't understand that, if I'm being honest. Marquise Stepp had the only touchdown for Nebraska, and he also had a really nice catch, so why he didn't play in the second half is something I can't even fathom. You may be asking what all this means and why I think this is all a mess, but this just comes down to coaching. The players with all the talent and all the potential aren't seeing the field. Scott Frost has way too much faith in Adrian Martinez, and it just seems like there's a general disconnect between the coaching staff and the players. There were also a couple of boneheaded penalties that happened tonight, and then there was that special teams safety disaster. Going into year 4 under Scott Frost, these things should not be happening anymore. They should be taking care of the ball, putting their best players on the field, and the coaches should just trust the team. It doesn't seem like anything is going right now, and this is Illinois, not some other big-time school. I gotta give credit to Art Sikowski. He stepped in, made a lot of good plays, and even had 2 touchdowns. They had a running back by committee approach today, and that worked as well. Multiple players caught touchdowns for the Illini, and the defense made plays when they had to. I gotta give a lot of credit to Brett Bielema, as he coached a great game, made some tremendous calls, and it seems like the players really bought into what he sold them. In terms of what I think this means for Nebraska moving forwards, my projection on them has now changed. At first I had them going 6-6, but if they can't take care of Illinois, I no longer have them winning the road game against Michigan State and the home game against Purdue. That changes my record to 3-9 for the remainder of the season, as I think they'll win against both Fordham and Buffalo and pull off a win in Big Ten play against Northwestern. Maybe this will cause a complete change and frenzy in the locker room, and they'll get it together, but this was a pretty poor performance by Nebraska, and it showed that in year 4, nothing has really changed from year 1. I was actually at this game today, and seeing all the reactions that Nebraska fans had was kind of sad. This is a program that was once really great, and took pride in playing physical football that would win games. It doesn't seem like the coaching staff is getting the most potential out of these players, and something is just disconnected here. If Frost doesn't make a bowl game, I believe he should be fired this year, and with this loss to Illinois, his seat is only getting hotter. If we take out the money and the contract stuff, if he doesn't make a bowl, he doesn't deserve to be the coach next year, and how much more time can you give him when the simple things like execution and player development just aren't happening? That's just my opinion though, and if you're a Nebraska fan, feel free to let me know what you think of this team. Feel free to rant about today's result. Give me your prediction for the rest of the season, and what should happen to both this coaching staff and the program in general. If you're an Illinois fan, congrats on today's win, and I'm really pumped to see what this Illini team can do the rest of the year, and I hope Brandon Peters gets better. Before you go, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you are new here, as you're not going to miss out on all the college football content I have coming up. And before you go, be sure to check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.